I'm going to start this video by apologizing for all the botched pronunciations that are about to happen. I've been avoiding doing this video for months because I was afraid of coming across as an idiot for not being able to pronounce things correctly. But to be honest, I can handle looking like an idiot as long as we're remembering someone from history who was really important and really influential. So her name was Whakaotirangi, and she was both a migrational leader as well as a scientist. She was a botanist and an experimental horticulturalist, and she had a really big impact on the agriculture and the horticulture and the botany that is available in New Zealand today. So she was from before the 1300s, we don't exactly know when, but she came from Polynesia, and she was a leader of the Tainui Waka migration. Waka means canoe, so Tainui canoe migration, and she was the daughter of the Tainui leader, and she was a leader in and of herself. Obviously when you're moving huge populations on canoes, you are in several canoes, so she was probably leading her own canoe, and that means she was a captain of a canoe ship. So we can call her a captain as well. And she landed in New Zealand. Now, there are two stories about where she landed. One is the Tainui story, and maybe that's the one that we trust because she's an ancestor of the Tainui, and that's the bloodline that she passed down. And that is that she landed in Kohia, which was in the Waikato, and she started doing her experimental horticulture and botany on one side of the mountain, and then she was like, oh, this isn't working so well. I'm going to move to the other side of the mountain. And the other side of the mountain was Aotea, and she set up her gardens in Aotea, which are still there today. And the other story is from the Te Aroa tradition, which is that she planted kumara, which is sweet potato, in both the Makatu, which is in the Bay of Plenty, and also the Wangaparaoa Bay, which is near Cape Runway today. So there's two stories, but maybe she just planted everywhere, or she got people who she was traveling with to also plant. Sometimes you're the leader and then you delegate. But in both stories, she was planting kumara. And when she was first planting the sweet potato, it did not survive. It did not like the colder climate. It was not down for it. It was like, no, 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 no. And so she had to do this experimental horticulture to actually make it germinate and, grow. And she found this way of planting that froze the plant, and then it would grow with this sweet, sour taste. So she was really the one that helped develop a way of growing kumara, or sweet potato, today that still exists in New Zealand. That was down to her. And she was also growing taro and fern and mulberries and fruit trees. There were also other things that maybe she brought, like different forms of gourds, but we know that taro, mulberry, fern, and fruit trees she was definitely handling. So she's really doing this agricultural process of horticultural sciences, where she was bringing seeds from Polynesia to New Zealand, and that has influenced what grows there today. That's down to her. Now, that's pretty cool. So it's great that we had a pre-1300 scientist from Maori culture doing seed work there. But I want to talk about why horticultural growth is so important, and specifically the close monitoring of its impact, as well as how to grow things well. So when you're looking to have, in her case, both medicine and food from this crop, you need to monitor it and see how it impacts the natural surroundings. That's what she was doing, a very responsible way of doing horticultural science, as well as growing a vital resource for her people. When this goes wrong is when people don't pay attention. They don't stick around to do the science, to see whether this can be a sustainable way of developing a medicine or a crop. One crop that was left by a different captain has left long-term erosive results. And that crop was left behind by Captain James Cook, who you might have heard of. And when he came over, he left behind something quite invasive that is still destroying up to 14% of New Zealand today. 7% of that which it's destroying currently today, at the cost of the DOC, which is the Department of Conservation, is conservation lands. So lands that we really want to protect, it is currently still destroying. There's so much money going into protecting these lands from this invasive species, but they're everywhere because Captain Cook was just like, oh, here, I'll leave some food behind that can just go everywhere, and didn't monitor what its impact would be. And that invasive species is goats. So New Zealand currently has an infection of wild goats, which were left behind by James Cook. And James Cook left them there in his second voyage to New Zealand, which was in 1776. And he left them there for two reasons. Firstly, as a food source, but secondly, these were Angora goats. So this was so that if he came back, he could make a fine wool industry. It never took off. He also used some of the goats as bartering with the Maori, but the issue is that he just let these goats go anywhere, and they are really damaging to both the soil. They create this really intense compaction that means seeds can't really grow well in the soil, but also they don't let anything grow. They eat everything. They eat all saplings, all seedlings. They basically are responsible for a lot of the deforestation as well as the inability to reforest places because they eat everything. Every young seedling that's trying to just have a chance at being a tree or being a plant, they just eat. So they're a really annoyingly corrosive species to New Zealand. And James Cook was just like, here, this is a great idea. Food for wreckages. If we have any people from Europe who want to visit and they wreck on the way here, there's a food source. And Angora wool, in case I come back and want to have a business. Like, not forethinking. Didn't stick around to see how this is actually going to impact the place that they're now inhabiting. We also need to remember that a goat requires an awful lot of plants to feed it so we can eat it, whereas we could just eat the plants. At some point in our humanitarian future, we're going to have to realize that plants are just a more efficient way of feeding ourselves. That's not me saying everyone needs to be vegan or vegetarian or whatever. It's just that we need to lean more in that direction and also protect those species more. The more we homogenize our agriculture, the more we are at risk, because if one of those things, like remember the potato blight and the famine, have we not learned? Like it takes one disease to wipe out an entire crop and then we're screwed. We really need to have diversity. And if we don't have that diversity and we don't figure out how to grow a crop in new lands or develop diversity in the places that we're in, we're going to be at risk of suddenly losing our food source. So there's one place in the world that is doing something about this, and that's in Norway. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault Hold is protecting species from up to 13,000 years ago. So this is like agricultural history that they're looking after, as well as what we might depend on in our future. And they are conserving 1,355,591 types of seeds. That's a lot, but it's still not all the different seeds that we could be protecting. I encourage you, if you have a rare species of seeds somewhere, please send them. Because if we don't protect them, they will just simply die out. We are destroying healthy soil. We are running out of topsoil on the planet. We need to protect seeds. This is so important. We seem to be not understanding this. Like us going like, oh, we'll have beef for everyone is not going to be a functional way of feeding 8 billion plus people. We need to look after plants and we need to look after the soil that they grow in and the places that they grow in. And so Norway is doing something about this. The cost of this is $8.8 million that Norway is investing in conserving these seeds. So I think we should be very, very grateful to the Norwegian government for saying, no, this is an important thing. But let's think about the politics of what happens then. So if Norway has all of the seeds and the diversity that it needs, and you are not Norwegian, it can charge anything it likes for access to those seeds. It's also really important that it doesn't give those seeds to people who don't know how to grow them, because if they grow them incorrectly and then those seeds, sometimes there's only one left, doesn't germinate and it doesn't grow into anything and they don't have more seeds propagated from this thing, you destroy history. So it's really important that you have the knowledge of how to grow these seeds, because you are taking on the weight of history when you try to grow them. And you can afford to buy those seeds in the first place from a country that can afford to charge you anything for them. So we are putting ourselves in a political vulnerability by leaving basically one massive seed vault for the whole globe. Now, Norway is intending for this to be a global project, so we all should have access to these seeds. But like I say, we need to have the knowledge of how to propagate them properly in order to make these seeds viable and to be able to do anything with them. If you just have seeds in storage, that's not going to save humanity. But if we have seeds that we know how to propagate and we understand how to do experimental horticultural work in a way that means that we can practically bring species back and put variety back into our globe, into our diets, and also into our habitats. Remember that our habitat is protected by biodiversity. We need lots of different crops growing to protect the landscape that we live in. It's not just for us. We aren't the most important thing on planet Earth, okay? We seem to forget that. A lot of human centrism. It's not just about keeping us going, it's also about protecting the globe. It needs to have things like forests so that there's clouds, so that the oceans don't dry out, and that there's different landscapes and riverbanks and all this protected infrastructure that it's created. If we take away the plants that make that infrastructure, we're not going to have the planet as it is. And the planet is really freaking beautiful. People need to spend more time appreciating how outstandingly beautiful our planet is, and how not just that beauty, but its right to be beautiful should be protected. When do we think about the fact that Earth has a right to be as beautiful as she is? We get upset if someone is scarred by an injury from someone else. The Earth is being scarred by us, okay? We should be upset about that. We need to think about seed propagation and protection, not just for our sake, but also for the globe's sake. The globe needs her biodiversity to keep her own structure, to keep her face, okay? She got a beautiful face. Let's look after it. And this is something that Whakaotirangi really understood. She was bringing over seeds so that she could grow something in case there wasn't anything there, because they didn't have the internet back then, so that they could like Google beforehand of like, is there food over there? You had to bring the restaurant with you, and that restaurant was a slow growing one. Very, very farm to table restaurant. You had to build the restaurant and grow the stuff first. But she was bringing the stuff so that there would be food for her people to eat and that she could guarantee that there was, because she knew how to propagate her seeds. But also so that they had medicine, and she was doing it in a way that wouldn't be invasive. It was a controlled, experimental way of doing horticulture where she stayed, saw what needed to change so that she could get the produce that she wanted for food and medicine, but also so that it didn't impact and damage the land that she was moving to. She understood the relationship between people and land, and that we're one and the same. If Earth is destroyed, we are destroyed. If the habitat is destroyed, we are destroyed. If the seeds are destroyed, we are destroyed. We are part of the ecosystem. We're not apart from it. We are a part of it. And we need to remember that. We also need to protect seeds. We need more global seed banks. This needs to happen. If they knew this at some point before the 1300s, why are we forgetting it now? And if you look it up, it's her son, Horticulture, who is like considered the ancestor of the Tainui bloodline in New Zealand. But she's the ancestor, surely, because we say like, oh, my ancestors are from another country or whatever, and they are the ancestors. So I'm going to give her the credit. She was the one who brought this bloodline to New Zealand, so she's the ancestor. So if you are Tainui, let's give her the credit for your ancestry, because she goes back one generation earlier, and she came from Polynesia, which is damn brave. Canoeing from Polynesia to New Zealand? I don't think anyone would do that nowadays. That's freaking terrifying. And she was doing this with a whole community and a load of seeds. Like, I'm super impressed. One thing that I'd like to leave you with is the meaning of her name. Whakaotirangi means completion from the sky, or the heavens complete, which seems really fitting to her story. She seemed like a very meta-aware leader who understood the overall process that needs to happen to complete this journey. And she also seemed very connected to the wide expanses of the world. She understood what it meant to integrate somewhere else and how these places could be connected in their diversity. That seems like a really beautiful way of understanding her story and why she was given the name that she was given. But she also gives us a lesson that we need to learn, and that is that seeds and seed propagation needs to be both a practical thing, seeds, the object that we need to protect, and a skill that we need to carry forth and relearn. We need to understand how species can be inhabited safely into new land and propagated safely in new land. Not like Captain Cook, who just left a species of goats to slowly destroy 14% of New Zealand. I mean, that's 14% of New Zealand now, when there are full departments working to minimize the population of wild goats. That's now. Before there was a government-supported organized department trying to solve this issue, that percentage was a lot higher. So no thank you, Captain Cook, but yes thank you, Whakaotirangi.